Good afternoon, Mr. Markov. You're welcome to Kazakhstan, and I'm very happy to cooperate with you. So I would like to take an interview with the first question. Everybody knows that social protection policies vary greatly, and it can be different from one country to another. So how does the International Labour Organization address these differences and promote best practices to social protection worldwide?
Thank you so much. And thank you for this warm welcome to Kazakhstan. It's the first time for me. Indeed, so there is no one country that's like another. There are as many social protection systems as countries almost. And yet, when countries meet in Geneva within the International Labour Organization, the ILO, they discuss what are the common grounds to make these systems better. They look at what works, what doesn't, what can be used by others in order to help their systems get better, improve coverage, improve the level of the social protection benefits, and so on. And when they do that, and they agree on something, they can decide that these measures that they have described can be built into international labor standards. In this case, international social security standards. And these standards actually are the common denominator of the good practices that exist worldwide. And then, because they are discussed by a tripartite assembly, the International Labour Conference, representing governments, employers, workers from all around the world, this is a compromise. So you reach that compromise after intense negotiations, and everybody at the end is satisfied that they have struck the golden middle, that the benchmarks that the convention or the recommendation proposes are good to guide countries, to guide the development of national policies and so on at the global scale.
Mr. Markov, question number 2. Can you discuss the importance of international labor standards in shaping social protection policies and how the International Labour Organization facilitates their adoption and implementation?
Indeed. So we said we have various international labor standards, and some of them are related to social security. These standards are conventions that once you ratify them, they become compulsory for the country to observe. And there are also recommendations that are guidelines, policy guidelines in terms of how to innovate, how to go beyond what the convention would require. Sometimes they are related to a convention, or they can be standalone recommendations on new things, like the 2012 recommendation number 202 on social protection floors, which introduced the idea of social protection floors that needs to be guaranteed for everyone, everywhere. And actually, this very recommendation number 202 sets the strategic vision of how to reach universal social protection. And how do we reach universal social protection? Is by having floors that apply to all basic levels of protection, and then higher levels of protection for all persons that are able to contribute, that have sufficient earnings to contribute to social protection and social security. And the main vehicle, the main means through which these systems are piloted by the state, because the state social protection is a big ship in a way, and you need to orient it, it's hard to move because it's very heavy. And so the main policy, the main vector for moving this ship, and the captain being the state, it's by way of national policies, national social protection policies. So the recommendation 202 actually says countries need to have these objectives set into a national policy that is adequately financed, that identifies where the gaps are, identifies how to get rid of these gaps in coverage, identifies whether the benefits are sufficient, whether they're adequate or not, and then proposes how to get there in a period of time, over a period of time. Usually it can be between 5-10 years. And so this is how international labor standards guide policy making as well, because they determine the main principles that apply to social protection policies, the main strategic axes, horizontal extension to all, vertical extension to all those who can contribute, for example.
Very nice. Mr. Markov, as a professional, as a legal specialist at international labor organizations, what can you say briefly about Kazakhstan's role and Kazakhstan's perspective? What is your point of view about Kazakhstan's role and the strategy, its place at international labor organizations, as a professional's opinion?
Thank you. I think Kazakhstan's engagement with ILO has started ever since the country gained its independence following the dismantling of the USSR. And has been also in the area of social protection in particular, has been always trying to, although the country has not ratified the social security conventions of the ILO, has always used them as a source of inspiration for designing the national policies, designing the national legal framework, and we have already collaborated at numerous occasions. I think in the current period, what is important is that Kazakhstan is now facing a time when the national social protection system is going to be revamped, is going to be fine-tuned. There has been already certain reforms, other reforms are intervening, and we want to have Kazakhstan as a good example of how abiding by the principles and minimum benchmarks of ILO social security standards can help the country develop its system further in view of reaching universal social protection. And for that matter, having an assessment, for example, of how the national legal framework and practice stands in comparison to the international minimum standard is something that would be of great added value and that the ILO is ready to support.
Yeah. Thank you. So the last question, Mr. Markov, gender equality is a crucial aspect of social protection. How does the International Labour Organization work to ensure that social protection policies are gender responsive and inclusive?
Indeed, the reason why gender equality is a principle recognized by ILO social security standards, it's recognized explicitly by ILO standards as a principle that guides policy making, lawmaking, and so on, is because we have inequality out there. And we've had inequality ever since the end of the Second World War. We know how labor markets have developed. We've had inequality, especially women in the labor market's role has not followed that played by men. And therefore, social protection has always been seen as a way to rectify these, for example, by recognizing the time women spend in child rearing, and by recognizing these years when they enter old age and crediting a certain number of years to their pension rights. But it also needs to be said that social protection alone cannot fix the inequalities that exist in the labor market. And therefore, as much as we need to have gender responsive, gender sensitive social protection policies, and we know how to do these and how to advise countries to design these, we also need to promote equality in the labor market. Because if you have it there, social protection can only rectify the situation, but probably not to the extent that we all want to reach equality, gender equality out there.